I have no doubt that these watches are probably pretty familiar to most people, with this watch costing just under $40 and this one costing around $70. Both of these watches are considered Casio legends in the budget watch world, but today we're going to talk about which one actually deserves the crown, the MRW-200H or the Casio Duro. Let's start with the design and looks. First of all, looking at the MRW-200H. So what we have here is a very sort of lightweight plastic resin watch, has a bit of a tactical black, white and red aesthetic to it. I would say it's pretty bold and easy to read, with the 12-hour time around the edge and the 24-hour military time on the inside ring, along with the Casio logo and the water resistance marking of 100 meters. You have a plastic bezel, a stainless steel back, and then the resin strap. Overall, kind of gives you that sort of go anywhere, do anything sort of watch. I think being mostly plastic and resin kind of gives you the feel that it's gonna last forever, like most plastic things. Now looking at the other side, we have the Casio Duro, which is predominantly built from stainless steel with its rotating bezel. This watch, I would say, has a much more traditional sort of dive aesthetic that we all know and love. The dial itself has a lovely black face along with the round markers except for the 12, 3, 6 and 9. There is also the Casio logo there at the top and the beloved Marlin along with the water resistance of 200 meters. This watch also does come with a mineral glass, a lot like the MRW, which also does. However, this watch does have the screw down crown, which the MRW does not. This does come on a rather awful stock resin band, which, as you can see, I've swapped out for a lovely blue para. Overall, for me, I would say the Duro has a much more sort of premium and hefty kind of feel to it. So I would say when it comes to design and looks, I think the Duro beats out the MRW here. This next section, we're going to be talking about the comfort and wearability. Starting with the MRW. Now this watch is an incredibly lightweight and easy to wear daily beater. It has that cliche trait that you could say it really feels like you're not wearing anything. It also is a very low profile watch, so it fits under sleeves. You just have to use your imagination, but trust me, it does. I would also say with this resin strap, it doesn't have any sort of hot spots, which is really nice, and overall a great summer watch, doesn't get too warm. I would say it's an odd thing, but the placement of the holes is also great. It has sort of that perfect tightness on the wrist. It's not sort of being stuck between holes where you're a little bit too big or a little bit too tight. For me, it works perfectly. So overall, this for me is a very, very comfortable watch. Moving over to the Duro for comfort and wearability. Now there is no argument, this watch is definitely a much more substantial and hefty watch than the MRW, being all stainless steel. I would also say again that you would have to use some of your imagination because, as I mentioned earlier, this watch does in fact come on a really awful resin strap, which I have swapped out. So if we were to say based on how this watch comes stock, I would have to go with the MRW in terms of pure comfort. Let's touch on the durability and build. Now, if you're familiar with these two watches, they are both renowned for taking quite a beating. The MRW being plastic and resin, and the Casio being stainless steel. For me, the Duro sort of takes the lead a little bit here, just because whilst we all know that plastic is going to outlive us all, there's something about this stainless steel case that really just inspires the confidence that, you know, you can throw it around, you can bump it, and it's really not going to show a lot of wear and tear, and ultimately be more usable long-term than, say, the plastic resin. I feel that this may break or become to a point that it is not as usable as, say, the Duro a lot quicker. There's also the conversation of water resistance. This Casio Duro has a screw-down crown, and this has a push-pull. So for me, I feel much safer going in water with this, despite stating the obvious that it is also a 200-meter water-resistant watch versus the 100-meter water-resistant. Again, I just feel that in terms of durability and water resistance, this Duro takes the lead a little bit ahead of the MRW. So for me, I think when it comes to durability and build, the Duro wins pretty easily. Category 4, the features and functionality. Now, the Casio Duro is your typical run-of-the-mill three-handed watch. You have your minutes, hours, and second hands. There's also a date complication with just the number at the 3 o'clock. This watch does come with a little bit of lume. However, I would say by no means is it great. It is, however, miles better than the MRW. This watch also has a rotating bezel, which only goes one direction. However, I would say that this can be a little bit hard to turn, as this has sort of a very smooth, polished sort of edge to it. This also has a screw down crown to help with the water resistance. There's also hacking, meaning that when you pull out the crown, the seconds stop. So when you want to set things super accurate, you can. Overall, this definitely has a much more pro diver level specs to it compared to the MRW. Now let's look at the MRW. This watch has the same 3-hand setup as the Duro. However, it does have those 24-hour markings around the inside. This watch also has a date complication at 3, which in my opinion puts it slightly above the Casio Duro, which only has the date. This watch does come with a bezel. However, as you can see in here, it is a frictionless bezel, which also happens to turn both ways, which in my opinion makes this a little bit less of a competent dive watch in terms of bezel. Obviously, because it can move both ways, it means that you could potentially lose your timing, which is not ideal when you're going diving. However, it is a very functional bezel should you just want to be timing your pasta or something to that effect. As mentioned earlier, this watch does technically have lume, although I would say it's pretty much non-existent unless you really blast it with some UV light, but for the most part it's just kind of there but not really functional. As this watch also does not have a screw down crown, kind of loses a little bit of water resistance, I think, compared to, say, the Duro. When it comes to features and functionality, I feel like this one depends a bit more on your personal preference. For me, I'm a bit more aligned with the features and functionality that the Duro presents. However, that being said, this MRW may also tick a lot of boxes for you personally. I think they both have their strengths and weaknesses, and they both have their places. Now, category 5 is a little bit harder to answer because it's a very subjective thing, and that is value for money. So the MRW, for a daily beater that is analog and is one that is very reliable and very replaceable, I think $40 and less is a very reasonable price. And now I've seen this watch go for a lot cheaper on sale, and it's always on sale somewhere. You just have to keep your eyes out. So for me, it's really unbeatable. It's just an easy option at that price. Now, the Casio Duro is, again, around sort of between $70 to $100, depending on where, when, and who you buy it from. For me, this is really a great entry-level diver. And, you know, for the price, there's very few watches that can be matched in terms of overall performance, specs, and just, it's a really good-looking watch for $70. So for me, I would say they both kind of win in their own way. You know, it's more, what do you value? What do you think is more important to you? And what are you willing to pay? And now on to the hard part, the final verdict. If I could keep only one of these watches, it would have to be the Casio Duro. For me, it just checks a lot more boxes and really represents good value for money. I think the real win though here is the fact that for just north of $100, you could own both of these watches and get the best of both worlds. So which would you pick, the $40 beater or the $70 legend? Drop it in the comments and let me know your thoughts. Thank you for watching, and if you liked this video, don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button, and may the hours and days ahead be kind.